When I look back in all the times in Dubai, we hosted, and I thank my wife for that, we hosted over 100 dinners at home. And we invited our clients, our well-wishers, our influencers with their spouses. Because one, your home is the most personal space you can invite someone to. I'm grateful. It wasn't about the size of my home. It was an apartment, but it was your home is a personal space, and you're having a meal, home cooked meal. You've now connected culturally in them tasting your food and also experiencing personal space. So you've removed the barriers that there is to connect. You know, there are no strangers using your firm. So by breaking bread, you remove the word stranger and you're able to connect personally and build authentic relationships with people.
Hello, welcome to Connect with Confidence with Kerrie Phipps. And I'm so delighted to be here today with Gautam Ganglani, who I met in Singapore in 2017. Gautam, thank you so much for taking the time to chat today.
An absolute pleasure, Kerrie. Can't believe it's been 3 years, but pleasure to connect with you here. Thank you.
I know. And for those who've seen on social media, they might remember I met up with you in Dubai also. And you invited me to come and speak to the Indian Business and Professional Council just last year on my way home from Europe, which was an incredible experience also. So now we're talking to each other from Australia to Mumbai, I believe.
Mumbai, yes.
Yeah, how's it going there?
It's going well. I mean, we're obviously in this new reality that we're all facing currently. For me, it's I've quickly accepted the new reality back in March and went straight into making things happen with what we have, because that's the focus is really being grateful for what we have and making the most of those cards that you're dealt in such a way. So it's been a really enjoyable few months. When I say enjoyable, just to put it in perspective, it's enjoyable from the angle of it presented a unique opportunity where you're homebound. You've got to definitely have, balancing between work-life balance, family time, to your work and me time. So you've got a lot to sort of balance. So that's one interesting new challenge that you take on. And from a business standpoint, when your business was pretty much all offline, you've suddenly got to bring it online. So I think it's been a deep learning curve for us. And I just love learning. So it's about learning, pivoting, making a difference. So I think in that experience, it's been an inspirational one, to say the least. And it's still going on as we speak.
Yeah, I've loved seeing what you've been up to just on social media. And we have people listening from all over the world, and everyone's, lockdown experience has been different. But in India, it's really been quite intense, hasn't it? Quite challenging for a long period of time.
Yes, it has been. I mean, I've been in Mumbai and we've been literally in lockdown since March 15th. So over 4 months, I have been very much homebound and have not left sort of my complex of where we stay. And it looks like that way, at least for the coming months as well. So that is what it is. And I think with whatever challenge you're facing, wherever you are in the world, is acceptance is the first major step you need to take. The moment you accept, now accept doesn't mean accepting something with defeat or loss. It's accepting what you cannot change and accepting what you can. And I think the moment you move to that acceptance, the brain stops asking you questions like, why did this happen? Whose fault is it? When will it stop? How will I solve it? Because all those questions are, they're just spirals. They'll just keep going round and round. There's never an actual defining answer. Yeah. So the moment you accept, it is what it is. And obviously that's not in your hands. You then say, okay, now, based on what it is, what can I do about it? And that's where, as a team, as a family business, back in March, we said, okay, my dad and me sat down and said, okay, what is in our hands? We have great relationships with people we've connected over the last 25 years. We have a great database of people who've experienced, our learning experience. So we know we're well connected with speakers, thought leaders, trainers, coaches, authors. We know that we have a great database that we've built over the last 25 years. We know we have good connections in the media. So you start listing all these. I said, now these are the assets we do have. Can we reach them? Absolutely. Virtually doesn't stop you from reaching. When they said physical distances, we said what they actually mean, or they said social distancing. Yeah. I said, no, they actually mean physical distancing.
Yeah.
Actually, you get a chance to be socially more connected now than you ever have been. I've actually took a mandate to have, a conversation with minimum of 2 people a day who I've just not said, between friends, family. I in the first 2 months, in the first 60 days, I actually listed it in a book of mine, which I have, where I had over 100 conversations in the months between mid-March to mid-May. And it was just to call someone and say, how are you doing? Yeah. Most of those calls, people just vented, shared their frustrations, concerns, anxiety, but they just appreciated someone with a listening ear. So you built what I call an emotional bank account. When they're in the good space, they know you reached out and they will reach out. There were some people who were in a more positive space who moved to acceptance, and we had, collaborative conversations, co-created ideas together, and some of them actually turned into business that we've done. So to me, those 100 conversations were a priceless way of socially staying connected with people, even though you physically couldn't meet. So to me, I actually spoke to far more people than I would have done in a physical world, just as we're connecting here on this very platform. I mean, you may be in Australia, I'm in India. That hasn't stopped us connecting. And if I use the terms of my book, Breaking Bread, we're getting to know each other personally and professionally and build a meaningful relationship over the distance, even though we're not in person. So coming to the personal side, it was those 100 conversations. To the business side, my dad and me said, okay, with all these assets that we've agreed and all people-centric, that we're well connected, I said to him, 90 days, and we set a plan, 90 days, where you're just going to give unconditionally, have an abundant mindset, be collaborative, make a difference. There are people in far more pain than we could ever even imagine. There are people who don't know where, their next meal's coming from. They don't know where they can pay their commitments. They're financial, they're losing jobs. So if you've got food on your table, family together, and your education for your family or kids taken care of, you're already in the top 20% or maybe top 10%. There's a lot to be grateful for. It puts things in perspective. In Marshall Goldsmith's own words, he said, everything beyond those three things, your home, your education, and food, everything's discretionary. It always has been. The entire world's economy is discretionary. Do you have to fly? Do you have to buy things? Nothing is a have to beyond those three things. All those are discretionary options. So today, when it comes down, we said the people are going to invest in themselves. So they want to learn now, because they said, how do I become stronger, more resilient, more confident in my current job or as an entrepreneur, that I can stay, not only survive, how do I thrive in disruptive times? So survival is a given, where human beings will find a way to survive one way or the other. Yeah. But how do you thrive is the real question. Again, asking yourselves better questions. So in this 90 days, we delivered 15 events, over 12,500 people, and we collected so much data that data was about, the demographics of our audience, the age group, their interests, the timings of preference of learning, their pain points, their budgets. And using all that data we collected, we then made our events in June and July. But in those 90 days, we just gave all events pro bono, but we built up so much goodwill. As my dad said, the most important bank account is an emotional bank account. Yeah. And I can say, business or no business, I mean, when I look back in last month, Dad and me said, that those 3 months we earned very little. I said, it wasn't very little. We actually earned nothing. 90 days, you had no income. I worked longer hours. My wife to vouch for that. She said, which weekends? Some days was just a day. It was just another day. I mean, that's now changed, obviously, having confined the model. But you worked longer hours. You had no income. And yet Dad and me and the team were happy and fulfilled more than we've ever been, because we just felt we've made a difference. We've impacted lives. We've helped people. And the amount of gratitude messages I received was priceless. And I said, if we can help people in this time, that's the real test. The real test is, how do you help people when they're in deep pain? Money comes and goes. This time will pass. But to me, when I look back, it was 90 days of just a magical experience of giving unconditionally, making a difference, helping people. So in time to come, when there is business, I know that we'll be top of mind as a preferred partner for these companies and individuals.
That's beautiful. And, when you started telling me that, we get on the phone today to have a catch up, because you've got a book coming out. You wanted to ask me about podcast, and it's time to swap notes, catch up. But as soon as you started talking about that 3 months where you gave your time, I just went, stop, we have to hit record because I want to hear about this. Because you asked yourself a great question, and I think you might have said quality questions, or maybe that's in my head because that's in my book too. Asking quality questions. You said,
absolutely,
what's in your hand? And similarly, I came home from India in mid-March or early to mid-March, and when the world is in such trauma, you do just pause and go, well, what can I do to help? We're not medical people. We can't, rush into the hospitals and volunteer, but we just said, what do we do? So I was asking myself, how do I serve the world at this time? And, we go online. We're both familiar with being online, but we have had a lot more experience being in the room with people. But I love hearing those stories. So thank you. And I've got so many questions that now that we're recording, let's go. Let's jump in. Do you want to just give us a little bio, a little introduction of yourself that will put people in the picture who don't know you yet?
Sure, Kerrie. So personally, I was born and brought up in London, UK, and that's where my childhood began. And then the age of 21, after graduating, I moved to Dubai, which was my home for 20 years. And that's where we started, our journey of our business transformational bookstore, which my dad started in 93. So he started with a bookstore, which is, a self-help, personal and business transformational bookstore. So that was sort of the business from 93 to 2000. I joined in 95 from the UK. And we used to see all these big authors coming in, from Tom Peters to Philip Kotler and numerous other authors visiting Dubai. And we would be, having the books at the back of the room for a number of years. And, come 2000, my dad and myself said, okay, what's next? I mean, we can sell so many books, but how do we evolve? How do we grow? What's the next step? And that was one of the great things. Relationship with my dad and myself, which is very close. We'd go for regular walks, and that's when the best of ideas come, when you're most relaxed. So yes, whether it's a walk, or whether you're at the beach or at the park, or just in me time away from the run-of-the-mill hustle and bustle of work. And the idea came, okay, how about we bring the authors of these events, of these books, for live events ourselves? And with our limited knowledge at that time, we understood that there's a direct correlation. And I guess I learned this from the music industry, is that people pay good money to go and attend concerts, and they're amongst tens of thousands of people, and yet they pay good money to see something they could watch on their TV or listen in the car absolutely free, because there's an emotional connect between that music connecting with their heart and soul to some extent, that they have an aspiration to go and listen to that musician. So using that analogy, if I call it, we said, okay, the same way the best-selling books have obviously been meaningful, added value, personally and professionally, to that individual. So using Ken Blanchard's book, Raving Fans, we said, we've got to look for raving fans who are in decision-making positions for a particular author. And that's how we started the business. And we brought in those days, actually, Ron Kaufman and a speaker by the name of Bob Urichuk out of Canada. And, their books were doing reasonably well in the Gulf region. And so we said, okay, let's bring those authors. And that's how we started saying, okay, which books are doing well? The books that are doing well, it means there's a market for that book. Let's bring that author and let's send emails to people who bought those books from us. And we saw a great result. Our first event had 130 people back in 2000. And then that event led to event. And we then started working with bigger and bigger authors, to Brian Tracy, Marshall Goldsmith, and numerous other authors and speakers. But it all came from the books business for 7 years, the events business in 2000, which carried on to 2015. And that's when we realized the larger companies would say, great, you're doing a public event. We've seen it on the TV, we've heard it on the radio, read it in the newspaper, but we want to bring this speaker, author privately. And that developed the speaker bureau stroke management model, which was, again, a natural next step. So I guess from books to events to engaging speakers privately, and then working in the Gulf and the Indian subcontinent. And that's sort of the journey of these sort of 25 years that I would share with you.
So when you said that you went to Dubai in 93, I think I can't imagine what that was like back then. You obviously, as you were growing your business, you have seen Dubai grow and develop so rapidly. Can you just give us a little insight into what you've seen?
Yeah, no, it's phenomenal growth when I moved to Dubai, actually in June 95. I mean, I saw the city grow up in front of me. Obviously, you just had a couple of malls then and a few buildings, and the entire landscape of the country transformed, and it was just really inspiring. I mean, great leadership by the leaders in Dubai and the UAE to have taken, put Dubai on the world map. So, the construction of property boomed, the infrastructure of systems in between the metros and the trains, the airport, the airline. To me, it's the marketing and the infrastructure growth of Dubai. It will always be a global case study for anyone looking at how to market, even in today's challenging times that we have now. Dubai is out there showing their robust insurance of safety and security first, showing the airports are ready to welcome people. Their marketing, their infrastructure, and always futuristic thinking. So my journey there from 95 till, I guess, 2019, that I spent time there mostly those 20 plus years, it was seeing the transformation. And I think it runs as a business to some extent, because every business is a startup. So to me, Dubai was like a startup when I was there. And from a startup, it became to a global player. It's on the global map, one of the top ranked cities. People say New York, London, Paris, Dubai,
yes,
Mumbai, Singapore. So in the top 10 cities in the world, it'd be there. 25 years ago, it was just a dot on the map. So I think that speaks leaps and bounds of Dubai's journey and transformation. And it continues to innovate as we speak.
Yes. Well, my visit there last year was my first time there, and I just found it absolutely incredible. It was just over 24 hours, but even seeing the construction from the top of the hotel, just looking down on the roads below and seeing what was being developed was really quite extraordinary. And so I'd love to ask you about connection and talking to strangers, because we first connected, well, you mentioned Brian Tracy earlier, and that's when we first connected. Was
Yes,
when
you were on stage at the at the HR summit at the expo in Singapore.
Yeah, so I was introducing Brian, and so we had a couple of dinners, which have already been mentioned in a previous podcast, actually, because I met Donna Hanson that night from Australia, and I've recently had her on the podcast. So yes, we met because of Brian, and I think I really started going to Singapore because of my book, Do Talk to Strangers, and we connected over that because you said that you loved that concept, and that's what took me to that group in Dubai, where I was thinking, as you were sharing about the growth that night, hearing some of the stories of the business people in the room that were being awarded for different accomplishments really was so mind-boggling for me to think of, in that period of 25 years, what's been developed there. And so back to talking to strangers, I would love to know, can you think of a time where you connected with a stranger and maybe you just thought it was a momentary meeting, but it turned into something more significant for you or them or somebody else?
I connect to strangers. Connecting to strangers for me is, I mean, I do it every day.
Yes.
It's something I enjoy doing. It keeps me excited in many ways. So I connect with people, be they strangers. They're strangers until you say hello. Then they're no longer strangers.
That's right.
But so to me, from every day, I'm obviously, we're not venturing out now, but when I look back, you mentioned a story. I think the easiest way to me would be one story was connecting to, there was an event taking place a year and a half ago. I went up to someone who was speaking to someone I knew. So I used that opportunity, which is a natural one, to connect and see who she was speaking to, because she looked like an interesting personality. And I was already looking to connect with someone who was a member of a particular VIP club in India that I was looking to become a member of. And I connected with this lady who I knew and said, wow, great catching up. How are you doing? How did you enjoy the event? And then she automatically, by default, connects me to the person that she's speaking to. It's a very natural thing. And that's which is going to happen when you're a regular networker. I connect to that person and suddenly realize that she was, let's say, a director of this club.
Wow.
And we got talking. And since then, I became a member of the club as well. And I meet her regularly. She's also the director of a major company in India. So we meet socially. She's super well connected. And it just happened from that first instance of going up to someone I already knew, knowing she was speaking to someone I didn't know, and my excitement to always meet new people. And I said, either I'll make a new friend or it may turn into business. Either way, I'm all game to meet new people. So to me, that was a very simple example, but it's something I recollect very, very easily. And I guess that's the easier one for audiences across the world to apply, is go up to someone you know who's speaking to someone else. That's an instant connect. I've obviously done more sort of adventurous ones as well, where you've gone up to someone you don't know, but you always just find a common subject. It could be the event you're at. It could be something you've experienced. So you find the common opening question, just say, nice to meet you, and just wondering, how was your experience of this? And to find that and just ask a great opening question, and then people will open up.
Yes. Yeah. Asking people their experience of something is fantastic. So what about when you're on planes? Obviously we're not on planes at the moment, but do you have any airport or plane stories where you've connected with someone?
Plane stories. I do make it a point to speak to everyone I sit next to. That's a given. Wherever I'm sitting, be it in a lounge or on flights, or I have had the pleasure of traveling a couple of times to US, and I traveled in business class, and I should have been sleeping because it was a night flight. But knowing my nature, I went to the social area and was standing, and you had great conversations over there. I don't think any of them I can relate or recall turning into business, but I can definitely say I enjoyed connecting with interesting people from different parts of the globe. So to me, even that multicultural experience you have is rewarding and fulfilling. So I might have learned something new about a particular culture, or learned something about a particular city that I may be visiting, or the country we're going to, their experience of that place. So I definitely learned something new from the people I met, and they were complete strangers. So to me, it's not about business. It's about creating new experiences. And you're learning something you didn't know before. So I think if it's a natural fit to business, great, but that's not the mandate to meet strangers. It's really to learn, improve, etc.
Yeah, and it can just be enriching in so many ways. And I think we can really do ourselves a disservice if we think that connecting with strangers is to, for an agenda to get business or to make something happen. But I think just going in.
The thing is, the moment you start with that mindset, unfortunately, by default, even if you have good intentions, your languaging will be different.
Yes.
You suddenly come across like, oh, this was a guy was maybe hard hitting, sleazy, pushy sales, and make the other person feel comfortable. But when you come across authentically and just out of interest to connect, just simply to connect. Now, if it leads naturally to business, that's icing on the cake. But that should not be your mandate at all. It's to make more professional friends, or to make new friends or acquaintances at that time. People travel, and a lot of people are quite lonely when they travel. And so to me, that's another common area, is that people travel, especially if they're traveling for business, they travel alone. So just sometimes they like to just speak to someone, and it's not about you may not even exchange contact details, but you added value to someone else. You either brought a smile, you laughed together, you added value to the experience of your flight journey. And that to me is connecting with strangers as well. Yeah,
absolutely. And there's far too much loneliness in the world. So if we can address that just by being kind to the people around us, it helps everyone. Thank you so much for sharing that. And one more quick question before I ask you about your new book. I just want to know, were you always confident to connect with anyone, or is it something that you've developed, that you've grown, been pushed to grow?
Thanks for that question. That question triggers my why, actually, and I guess it also leads to why I write the book, actually. Okay. But to the age of 13, living in the UK, which I mentioned earlier on the conversation, so I was I lived in the UK, and so the school I went to at the age of 13, I was bullied, I was teased, humiliated, made fun of, and it was a very difficult time in my, let's say, childhood days, young teenager, and just totally sort of appearing like an introvert. My self-esteem was an all-time low. My confidence was below average, I'd say, and my grades were below average. Nothing made any sense. And I just felt I guess, lonely and anxious, stressful, confused, and all these feelings came because of the external factors of me internalizing what people said to me or spoke to me about. So I went to my dad and I said, Papa, this doesn't make any sense. I'm confused, lost, stressed. I have very few friends. I'm not enjoying school. Please guide me, help me, out of this situation. And he gave me 3 pieces of advice. And since hearing that advice, it's helped me for the rest of my life till today. And he said, one thing I want to tell you about life is going to be constantly full of challenges. That's a given. Whatever you go through, life is always in change. That's consistent for the rest of your life. So you first is accepting that. So secondly, I'm going to give you 3 pieces of advice that whatever changes or challenges you go through, if you apply these 3 principles I share, you will always find a solution. I said, great, I'm all ears. And he said, firstly, surround yourself with the right people. Secondly, continuously learn. And third, most importantly, is take massive action. He said, when you do these 3 principles, you are guaranteed solutions, you're guaranteed breakthroughs, you're guaranteed success, you're guaranteed happiness and fulfillment. It doesn't mean the journey is easy. I didn't say that. But so in the context, I was lucky enough to change schools, and I made a new set of friends. And touch with my friend circle was really positive, energetic. And I suddenly was the person organizing the weekend parties and the events and where to go and what to do, and became the central with another friend of mine, Simon. And Simon and myself in the UK organized every weekend plan for 3 years, and where to go, what to do. And we'd have the best of friendships. We're still great friends today, the 10 of us in that group. And to me, I never look back. And now, with every challenge I go through, every situation, I say to myself, who do I have to surround myself with? What do I need to learn? And then just take massive action. And be it the current coronavirus situation, be it, 2009, or be it the previous challenges I've gone through in my 25 career, to me, applying those 3 principles helped me be the natural connector, communicator, inspiring person that I am today, and full of energy, is because I know that those 3 principles are my natural flow, my natural self. And my goal is to help people apply those 3 principles in their life. And hence the book was created, because of my personal 25 years experience of connecting with people and having an energy exchange. Hence, Breaking Bread was the philosophy in the book.
And I love that. I love the title. So tell me, where did the title come from? And is that a phrase that you grew up with?
Yeah, actually, it was a phrase we grew up with in the UK. They used that, let's break bread, or you'd hear it, I guess, going back, in time. I guess breaking bread was really about bread and water, if you go really literally to the back in history. But the term breaking bread was something I was familiar with in the UK. And it was really about having a meal. And, it was great to break bread, or let's break bread, or you'd say the family meal when we come together as a family every Sunday, where every family member, even the extended family, and we do that till today, where every Sunday, or in Dubai it was Friday, we'd all come together and have a family meal. And you say that's where every family member sort of, we're all busy in our respective lives, but when you bring the family together for that weekly Sunday meal, everyone gets to connect emotionally, share their week, share their learning, share what's working, what's not, share their holidays. And it just comes a time of sharing emotionally and being your authentic self. So the foundation of Breaking Bread definitely is from the UK in terms of the term, but the philosophy of Breaking Bread is really about the families coming together. And if I look back at our 25 years in business for me, my people ask me, what was your number one marketing tool in your business? You seem to be doing very well and your marketing is very omnipresent. Is it social media? Is it PR? Is it newspapers, radio, TV? The list goes on. And I say none of the above. The number one marketing strategy in the world, second to none, is Breaking Bread. And because when I look back in all the times in Dubai, we hosted, and I thank my wife for that, we hosted over 100 dinners at home. And we invited our clients, our well-wishers, our influencers with their spouses. Because one, your home is the most personal space you can invite someone to. I'm grateful. It wasn't about the size of my home. It was an apartment, but it was your home is the personal space, and you're having a meal, home cooked meal. You've now connected culturally in them tasting your food and also experiencing personal space. So you've removed the barriers that there is to connect. There are no strangers using your firm. So by breaking bread, you remove the word stranger and you're able to connect personally and build authentic relationships with people. And I have the same habit wherever I travel. When I go to Jordan and I meet our business partner in Jordan, he wants to take me to the best restaurant in Jordan, to the best hotel. And I said, I would like to have your street food. Yes. And he's like, are you sure? But we'll be sitting in this chair. I said, I want to eat that. Now, my relationship with my partner in Jordan is of the highest level. And even if we don't speak about it, but I know, having had that street food experience with him, eating with my hands the way he eats, that traditional food transformed the relationship. That's breaking bread. We had a meal at grassroots level. We had an energy exchange and our hearts connected emotionally as good friends, and you're top of mind. And that's what breaking bread is all about.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, I can't wait to see the book when it's out. And I know that you need to go, but there's so much more that we could talk about. So maybe you'd like to come back another time.
Maybe a part two.
Yeah, I'm very happy to do a part two, Gautam, because I think we've just scratched the surface. Breaking bread with strangers and with friends and with family, conversations are just so valuable. And you mentioned this before I hit record, and it was one of the things that made me say, can we record this? Because you were talking about something that I think you said Jack Canfield said about podcasts and connecting with people, and people just want to hear the conversations. It's something I was thinking about this morning, just the valuable conversations that not everybody gets to have, but I think we can model that and we can share our thoughts as we're growing through things and processing things. So I really appreciate your comments today. And if you'd like to correct or speak to that comment that you made earlier about Jack Canfield.
Sure. What Jack said is, when it comes to podcasts, it's all about creating value by sharing real life experiences. So it could be a conversation with my spouse. It could be a conversation with my children. It could be a conversation with a customer. Any conversation where you had an aha, or you had something which made you stop, think, or something that brought a smile to your face, something that brought some emotion, share that on a podcast, even if it's 5 minutes, 15 minutes. It's not about totally having a structured podcast that has to be a certain format and with a high profile personality. Those are nice to have once in a while. It's good for visibility, credibility. But what people really get engaged with is real conversations, authentic conversations. Sometimes, if you want to say behind the scenes conversations that are real, that they can connect with, that you had this conversation with your partner, with a friend, with your children, and you shared that. I mean, we learn even from our children. So we learn, even if it's patience, we learn patience from our children. So we have to be grateful to our relation to our children, because they help us to be more patient and better listeners. And we need that in the workplace. The best successful businessmen are people who ask great questions, listen, and are patient, as opposed to someone like myself, generally in the past was always about talking and listening less. And we may have those our natural tip, but I think it's really about, learning and then making those adjustments in terms of, what we do.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much. And I really loved hearing about your dad. I think you've mentioned him probably in every conversation that we've had, and you've acknowledged him from stage. And I just think that's so beautiful. And it just reminded me of a very recent podcast I did with Dr. Ram from Coimbatore. And again, it was one of those conversations behind the scenes. He just shared stories that he's never shared before and really honored his dad and spoke about the impact that his dad had. So I love these stories, and I appreciate your time, Gautam, and all the best with the book launch.
Thank you very much, Kerrie. It's been an absolute pleasure being on your podcast, and looking forward to part two in due time. But in the meantime, thank you for this valuable conversation, and look forward to breaking bread again with you.
Yes. Thank you, Gautam.